All right, welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Michelle Kennedy. I am a co-owner of Impact Realty Group, and I have with me on this class Sarah Hagan, who is our VP of Growth and Development. So today we're going to go over our multiple offers class. We did host this class in person, so there is a little bit of a change from what you'll see on your PowerPoint, but really the only changes we had everyone here do a highest and best offer in class. So just to go over what we're going to highlight today, we're going to go over the do's and don'ts of writing multiple offers. So we're going to look at both being on the buyer side, representing your buyer, and on the listing side when we get those multiple offers in, because it's equally important to know how to navigate those. We are going to talk about a net sheet breakdown for your seller and go through a few case study examples from past experiences that Sarah and I have both had within the past year, as it's been really crazy through this last year with multiple offers. Going to the next slide, just a little funny to try to break the ice a little bit with what everyone is dealing with multiple offers these days. It's very hard. So we put in a couple little snippets from a Instagram page called The Broke Agent. So
if you guys don't follow The Broke Agent, y'all should follow it. It's really funny. When you need a laugh, because we have we have stressful days, guys. So when you need a laugh, go follow The Broke Agent, because these are hysterical. I love the 6,223. That's your number in line for getting an offer yet. So I know we all feel that way.
Yep. So take your time and enjoy those. But if you're not following them, I would highly recommend it. So basically, just a couple things that, if it says if it hits the MLS, it's already too late. Getting ready to tell my client that the house they like already has 108 offers on it. I mean, these are a little inflated, but some of them might actually be true. So, but I discovered this on a Saturday morning. I probably sat and looked at those for, I don't know, a couple hours and just died laughing. So enjoy. So we're going to jump in and talk about being the buyer agent. So when you have a buyer in this market that we're in, where things go in a day sometimes, we want to kind of go over some do's and don'ts. And before I start going through those and highlighting and adding some information about those, I want to express how important it is that some of these are suggestions. I would never recommend putting your buyer in a situation where they're not comfortable, and just making sure that you can tell them what other people are doing to win multiple offers, but ultimately it's up to them as to what they choose to do. I would never basically strong arm anyone into making them do one of these things just to win an offer. So they have to have the buy-in as well. Anything you want to add with that, Sarah?
Yeah, I would say, we're just trying to put things maybe that you haven't thought about, or things in your arsenal that you can have as options. Not necessarily things that you have to do. It's kind of like when you go to list a house or do it, you're saying, hey, this is some recommendations, but at the same time, that ultimately they are the boss. So just trying to make sure you guys have all these options, and then, obviously giving them to your buyers and seeing what they say. But again, Michelle is 100% correct. Do not make your buyers feel like you're forcing them into something, because the moment you do that is the moment that you lose that trust, and then they don't know, where you are anymore. They don't feel like you have their best interest in mind anymore. So, and sometimes you have to take a minute and explain, and sometimes they have to lose a couple. Okay. Yes. So you say, well, I told them all of that. Now we lost it for exactly the same reason. That's going to happen. So
yeah. It's better to build trust that way than they learn from the experience. Right. Rather, unfortunately, we wish we didn't have to, and we try to protect them from that. But that's the way
normal. It's just like parenting. You try to protect your kids from doing something, but they still have to learn the hard way sometimes. So same thing.
Okay. So first on the list is, do have your buyers pre-approved with a local trusted lender before even showing a house. This is pretty much, I personally would not go show a house if they were not pre-approved in this market. It's not a good use of time for you. But the local lender part, and the reason I say that is because being on the end of seeing multiple offers come in on the listing side, if I see a Quicken, Bank of America, any of those type of lenders, and then I have a local lender that maybe I've already done business with or I've heard good things about, or I just know that they are local, period. They have a local address and phone number. I am more prone to suggest or recommend that to my seller client and explain why versus the Quicken. So a local trusted lender is very important. They have skin in the game. You know, these are the people that are going to see you at the grocery store and,
Right.
you know, your whatever, your activities that you do.
Plus, if you've got a problem, you can go knock on their door. So if you're not getting an answer and they're not calling you back, you can go knock on the door and say, look, I sent you an email. What's up? Why haven't you responded back to me? Or you may have their personal cell phone number. So if it's a Saturday or a Sunday and something comes up and you need a question, you have that local lender. So it's both for your buying, but also for just we've been preaching, you know, local trusted lenders before the multiple offer thing, just because of all the advantages. Things are in-house and it really can help you keep an offer together all the way to the end.
Yeah.
So
agents listening in that don't have a list of local trusted lenders, please reach out to myself or Sarah, because we can help you with that. So don't hesitate to do that.
absolutely.
Okay, so do talk to your buyers about the current market conditions, multiple offers. This is why a buyer consultation is very important. You know, we encouraged and still do encourage buyer consultations even before this market and now. And the reason is because it helps you talk about the process, helps you set expectations of what they're going to see in this market. And it helps go through this list that we have in hand too. So, you know, talking about their comfort level with some of these items and what they're willing to do to win an offer. Okay, do tell your buyers that conventional loans have a better chance of acceptance in this market. We just know that from experience. Obviously, cash is always going to be king, but you know, a conventional loan is better, has a better acceptance rate than an FHA, a VA, or USDA loan.
Now, the reason for this, for those of you who don't know, is because conventional is not a government-backed loan. So once you get into the FHA, the VA, and the USDA, you have more hoops to jump through. And we all know once you get the government involved, it takes a little bit longer to do things. They have a little bit more restrictions on certain things. So I would recommend, however, if you have a homeowner who is a USDA or a VA, that you need to try to, there's just so much they can do. So you try to push too hard, they're not going to like it. This is where you can go with off markets, and we can talk about that on another training. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but just trying to find something off market that they might actually be willing to do that with. So, all right.
Okay. So do schedule to see a property as close to the list time as possible. You know, the saying about the early bird catches a worm does sometimes apply in these situations, and don't assume that all sellers want to get into multiple offers. Some want to, you know, look at offers as they come in. So getting there early, and if your buyer wants to put an offer, getting it in early could mean that you may win that or win out, or even get in before multiple offers. So don't ever assume that that's you know, not a possibility.
Absolutely. So if you go in and it doesn't say in the MLS that they're taking highest and best by a certain day at a certain time, get in there quickly and go ahead and get your offer in. One of the things is you say, well, there's not multiple offers, so I'm going to ask for closing costs. Well, I'm here to that's not what we recommend right now. If you really want to get your guy under contract before everyone else gets involved, give them your highest and best from the beginning. Go ahead and offer them a little bit over asking price. Go ahead and keep it clean, no closing costs, nothing like that, because now they have this offer before anybody else gets involved that is a little bit over. They're not asking for anything. Why wouldn't they go ahead and sign it? So if you want them to sign and stop the contracts, just go ahead and give them a good offer from the beginning and try to see if you can get them to take it.
Yep. And just another side note on that one item is that, you know, don't leave it up to your client to call you to schedule that showing. If you don't have yourself attached to a very active buyer, in their search, you need to be able to be on alert too for those homes that are coming on the market. So if you leave it up to your client and they're at work and they don't check their email as often as we do, they may miss out. So, making sure that you set up those alerts to also CC you on any matches.
Yep. And send them a quick text. Hey, did you see the house? And send them the address.
Yep. Okay. Do call the listing agent to see if there are multiple offers or offers at all, and or what the plan is based, on that. So that feedback on the activity. So, I'm always surprised why that, buyer's agents don't call on the listing side. It's a very, very small percentage of buyer agents that call to see what's going on, especially in this market. I'm still very surprised at this. So I would always call to see what's going on. I've had situations where I get to the house and an offer was already worked out. That is so disappointing for the buyer. We took time out of our day. They took time out of their day. They may have loved the house, and then you get in the car and call the agent, and guess what? It's already gone. So call before you get there, even if it's been an hour. I mean, things happen.
Absolutely. Always reach out and say, hey, I've got somebody who wants to come see it. We're going to come see it at this time. Let me know if you get anything before then, or, wait on us, or just some kind of reach out to that listing agent. It does make you and your client look better also.
Mm-hmm. So just a piggyback on that is just to make sure that you ask what the plan is. If there are multiple offers, what the deadline is to submit, so you know that. All right, do ask the listing agent if the sellers are looking for any specific terms. They may give you what they want, and that's great because you can go back to your buyer with that and say, these are the terms they want besides price that would be beneficial to them, maybe an extended moving time. There's plenty of different scenarios where a seller may have different needs based on, their life situation. Do waive appraisal if a buyer is able and willing. Again, this goes back to comfort level, and this is only added in there. I don't actually recommend it, but, if a buyer's willing, if they're cash, if they have the ability to do that, generally speaking, an appraisal is going to be needed with any type of loan unless they can come to the table with the difference in cash. So, there are very few situations where that actually applies. Most of the time it's cash.
Correct. Or if they have a lot of money down. So if the house is $180,000 and they've got $90,000 they're going to put down, the chances of you having to waive appraisal are much greater than, in other situations. But what we're hearing back now is we'll put in multiple offers and the listing agents are calling in saying, hey, can you waive appraisal? No. Remember, the moment that you waive appraisal is the moment that if that house comes in short of what you offered, your client is responsible for the difference between what it appraised for and what you offered. So if you offered $250 and it only appraised at $200, your client is now out for $50,000.
Yep.
They are not going to be happy with you. This is a big, big problem. Now, we do have appraisal gap addendums that we can talk about how to cover, okay, so it's short $10,000 or $5,000 or whatever, and we're willing to pay a little bit of a difference. That's different from a total appraisal waiver. So
correct.
Be very, very careful with that.
Yep. Okay, doing as is on the versus any type of repairs or due diligence. Again, if buyer is able and willing, I've seen this happen. I've had a buyer that did it. I actually tried to convince my buyer out of it, but she wanted to do as is. And fortunately, it worked out in the end. That home did have a lot of work, but she had cash to fix it. So, it wasn't going to be a problem. But, if this is a first-time home buyer, please advise them not to do that. But it is happening, and it's happening a lot. Do have the buyer write a letter to the seller. So this has been floating around in, our community as a potential issue with, what's the word?
Equal housing opportunity.
Equal housing opportunities. But I would say, unless we're being told, not to do it,
right.
Just check with your broker.
Yeah, check. Pat has said that, you could be opening yourself up for some liability here. My recommendation is that if they write it, they try to keep it as simple as possible without giving any more details. And for the love of all that's holy, do not attach a picture. Okay. That is not something that you need to do.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to say why they like the house or how much they loved the home. And you can do that without, swaying on, remember what's protected in the equal housing and try to have them not mention those things.
Right. Age, race, sex, familial status.
Right.
Did I miss religion?
I can't remember what the other one is, but
those are the big ones.
The big ones. I'm not saying they can't say that they, aren't, that they're married or not, or, whatever. Just, you got to be careful.
Yeah.
You just be careful and do not do it for them.
Definitely not for them, for sure. Okay, do offer more than the asking price. Okay, this is like across the board happening. However, just because someone's willing to offer more than the asking price, more than often there's also appraisal contingency. So that's all fine and good, but it will always come down most likely to the appraisal. And just a side note on that, appraisers are very well aware what's happening in our market. They are not inflating prices because of lack of inventory. So again, it's a gamble for the seller if they want to take a crazy inflated, purchase price or offer, but in the end, it will come down to that appraisal, unless it's cash, of course.
Absolutely.
All right. Do talk to your buyer about a good earnest money deposit. So this is looked at by sellers when we break it down for them as far as multiple offers. So that is something I do highlight as a listing agent for my seller, because I feel like the more that they're willing to put down, the more serious they are. And that's how you can explain that to your buyer. But again, it's based on their comfort level and how much they're willing to put down, and also explain to them how earnest money works with the contracts, that it is a mutual agreement between the buyer and the seller. If something goes south with this contract, we cannot guarantee that they'll get that money back. So again, they have to be comfortable.
Correct. And every month we have a contracts class here in the office. So they just changed the termination of contract, which actually has how the earnest money goes back. Because we've had some issues with that because of the mutual agreement. We couldn't come to a mutual agreement a lot of times. So step into one of our contracts class once a month and check that out. But seriously, you got to make sure that they understand. Never tell your buyer, hey, as long as you do what you're supposed to, and the seller, if they don't do what it says here, you're going to get your money back. That's the moment you just lied. Mm-hmm. We never promise anybody any money on either side. Yep. Don't do it.
Okay, do an addendum to meet appraised value for a certain amount. This is what Sarah was just talking about, the gap coverage when it comes to an appraisal. So an example that I had recently was we had a home under contract for $260,000, and the buyer was willing to pay up to $10,000 from the appraised value to that contract price. So it actually ended up that the appraisal came in at $246,000. So the final contract price was $256,000. So it does work. And the seller still benefited. They still got more than they thought they were going to get. And the buyer, had that in writing. So in the end, that was the final contract price. But again, they need to have a good amount of cash in reserve plus their down payment. So not every buyer is willing to do that. But the ones that are, they are in a higher competitive zone.
Right. It lets you have that. Now, be very careful with your wording on that. And if it's not in .loop already, we will try to make sure that we have the addendum for that with the wording correct, so that you guys can get it right.
But always reach out if you're just not sure.
Just always reach out before. Just don't put on there, $10,000 above appraisal price, because what if the appraisal came in at what you offered, but it's capped out at purchase price and you didn't put that, then they're like, oh, but you said 10,000 over, now you owe me 270, or whatever. So be very careful in your wording.
All right. So then another caveat to appraised value is offering more than the appraised value. So let's just say the contract price is, $250,000 again, and the buyer is willing to go over just a certain amount. So this basically comes down to, it's not necessarily gap coverage, but it's a certain amount above appraised value. So it's a little bit different. So just the wording of that. But, some buyers would say, I'm willing to do $1,000 appraised value. And a seller would say, okay, I like that, or 2,000 over, at least they know they're going to get that amount over.
You could do 5,000 to replace the gap if it comes in short up to the purchase price, but you could also say, but I'm also willing to pay you $2,000 or $3,000 over appraised value if it appraises for at least the purchase price. So if it came in at $265 and you had a contract at $260, you're going to give them an extra $2,000 or $3,000 because it did come in.
Yep. And of course, they would need the appraisal,
a copy of it
for that to be verified. Okay, do an escalation clause with a contract. Okay, this is a little bit different than the last two. So an escalation clause is basically saying, okay, you're in multiple offers. I'll offer you $250,000 and $1,000 higher than the highest offer, up to $265,000. So you kind of have a stop loss at $265,000. So if they have any multiple offers or any other offers over $265,000, you're already out, unless they like other terms within the contract. So that's not necessarily the case, but so it's like I explain it as a stop loss for that buyer. It puts a stop on their comfort level. It makes them feel good, about whatever the best foot they put forward with the offer.
Right. And, because a lot of times the sellers or your buyers will be like, well, I'm willing to pay $15,000 over, but I don't want to if I don't have to. And so this is that contract, that piece of the contract that comes in that they might not have to pay the $15,000. Maybe they can get it for $10,000 over. Maybe they can get it for whatever. But it does give them that opportunity to offer X amount and then up to this amount. Again, there is no contract called an escalation clause. There's no, it's actually an addendum that we write this in. And it also says that they need to provide the contracts that drove them up to the full amount.
Yep.
So I do believe this is now in .loop, but we will double check that and make sure. And we can have it named escalation clause. Just don't want you to be looking for a document labeled escalation clause on the very top of it, because it's actually an addendum for the contract.
Yep. Just buyer's agents, don't forget to get that redacted copy of that contract so you can verify that that's how it drove that price up. Okay, do make closing 30-day or less. Obviously most sellers like a quick closing, but some sellers don't, and that's always negotiable. But if you can, more than likely a quicker close is more desirable than a 45 to 60-day close. So
absolutely. And reaching out to your listing agent in the beginning, reaching to them and saying, hey, look, I'm getting ready to bring you an offer on this. I talked earlier to make sure it was still available, so we went and saw the house. Now I'm calling you again to let you know that, hey, I want to bring you an offer on this. Where do your sellers sit? Do they want a 30-day close? Do they need a little bit longer? Because I had one the other day where my seller's like, I really don't want to close until 45 days out or 60 days out. So we just told them that, and that's what they did. They came in. So reaching out and touching base with that listing agent can help you with that as well.
All right, the next one here is basically, we already said this. I'll probably change this up a little bit and put that back towards the top, but not a bad thing to have it repeated again, which is to make sure you talk strategy with your buyer, to make sure they're knowledgeable about multiple offers and what they feel they're comfortable doing. And this actually may change as they experience some trials in the market, and disappointments. You might have to have another conversation. Just say, hey, you remember when we talked about some strategies? Do you want me to suggest some? Do you want to talk over what other, agents or buyers are doing in this market to win offers? So not a bad thing to revisit as you proceed and, working with this client.
Especially if you get a rejection offer from the seller. Like I had a seller send me another agent in our company was telling the rejection offer that was sent, and it was saying, hey, we know this is tough. We know this is coming up hard, but we wanted to let you know, just give you some insight to what you lost to. And they kind of gave that information. So then you can take that back to your buyer and say, okay, I went back and I touched base with the listing agent, and this is why we lost. Some of them will tell you some of them won't tell you much, but at least if you say they went 20,000 over, your buyer goes, oh, well, we were only wanting to go 5,000 over.
Right.
So it gives you that extra to actually let your clients know that you know what you're doing as well.
Yep. Okay, do fill out the contract in its entirety. That is so important. I don't know what it is. I just have a little bit of a pet peeve. I think Sarah does too, but if I get a contract and it's sloppy, if it's half filled out, if there's gaps, if, the closing attorney is a TBD or the lender's a TBD, or just things missing. I personally like when they fill out the listing agent's information. I just feel like it just shows attention to detail, and this is the kind of person that you're going to be working with for at least 30 days on the other side. So, it does say a lot about your professionalism, and what, we talk about a lot here is being better and above the rest, and showing that professionalism, I think, is really important. Just be very detailed, and that kind of goes into that next comment there.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other pet peeves, Sarah, about contracts?
I don't like to see blanks in the contracts, and that's because Pat, I was trained by her. She can't stand to see blanks in a
For
contract.
example, like the closing costs.
Right, the closing costs, just because it's a zero, I put a line. I don't even put zero. I just put dashes through it. Or home warranty, I just put dashes through this.
There's
just
no
those
question.
blanks, so there's no question as to whether or not we're asking for something. Okay. I just put, and you don't have to fill up the whole thing, but at least halfway through with some dashes. I just don't like empty holes, and I do like to go ahead. For my entire career, I filled out the listing, even before multiple offers, just as a courtesy. So I always filled that out. So I still do that to this day. And
I always check LLR, make sure their license is active.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny the things that you find out.
I haven't found one that's not active yet, but I'm waiting for that day.
And so, like, the next one was no blanks and missing fields, because those are a pet peeve. And I will tell you right now that your broker does not like them either, because she trained me.
You're going to have to go back and fill them out.
Yeah, she doesn't like it. So it makes everybody happy.
The mediation fee, I've noticed that's always one that a lot of agents leave blank, and I don't like that it's left blank. I think I always put $350 in there. But
I was going to say, it needs to be, somewhere. I think it used to be like 100 or 150, and then they said 250. I would just put, like Michelle said, $350, especially with the new termination, because the objects are, buyer gets the cash, seller gets the cash, we're splitting the cash, or we do not have an agreement, so send it to mediation. So that this way, because the attorneys were getting stuck with this money, and they're like, what am I going to do with this? I can't release it anywhere, and I have nothing to do. So it automatically is sent to mediation. So now more than ever, if you have a no meeting of the minds, then you're going to have make sure there's some money in there. That comes out of their earnest money, in general. So if the $350 isn't needed and only $200 is, that's what they take out. But it's what they've got set aside for that.
Yep. All right. Making sure that we attach all of the contract documents with the offer. That way it's all in one package. We know the other agent doesn't have to ask us for the seller's disclosure signed, or lead-based paint if that's applicable. If it's someone within our brokerage, a designated or dual agency agreement, and of course the pre-approval letter. Please don't forget that. I don't like when I get an offer without a pre-approval letter, even if it's promised, because, well, one, the clock's ticking, right, with multiple offers, and it makes me a little nervous. It might be a great offer, but I don't have a pre-approval letter, and what am I going to tell my seller?
Right.
And I'm not going to advise you to take something without a pre-approval letter. So
that's true. And when we're on the listing side, whoever's on the listing side, you've got 11 contracts coming in. I know I worked with another agent who had, I think 30 coming in, and we were looking at all the different things, and you got to go and you have to present these to your seller. So you've got all these contracts that you have to present to your seller, and if you don't send me all the documents at once and then you send them to me one at a time, the chances of me not having the entire package together to give to my seller are greater. So don't take that chance that I'm going to go back. I don't have time to go back and babysit buyer's agents on the listing side. I just don't. I expect you to do it from the very beginning. So with whichever side I'm on. If I'm on the buyer side, I'm going to make sure the seller has everything that they need, because I know on the selling side, I don't have time to go back and check your work and check your contracts and fill in the gaps and find the paperwork that you should have sent me in the beginning.
Yeah.
So it does hurt your clients when you don't make sure you have it all together.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. And of course, if it's a cash offer, proof of funds,
Yes.
if a pre-approval letter.
And not a picture of their bank statement. Okay. Michelle's like, but it is true. People are like, here's the deposit I just made. Here's the deposit receipt for it. And it shows that I got $80,000 in the bank. That is nothing. A proof of funds letter is from the bank, and they actually stamp it, and it's got the bank letterhead on it. Mm-hmm. So do not fall for that whole, and some of you don't know. The first time I didn't know. I was like, Dustin, can I use this? And he's like, no. And I was like, okay. I didn't think so, but I needed to know for sure. So now, if you're listening to this, you now know nothing qualifies except for call your bank, tell them you need a proof of funds, and have them email it to me. That's all they have to do. If they do that, then they're going to make sure you get what you need.
Okay. Next one. And I want everyone to star this, save it, download it in your brain. Having the lender call and email a listing agent to vouch for the buyer's ability to pay. I have had this happen one time, and it's resonated with me so much. I still think about it. I mean, think about all of the multiple offers that we've been in. I had one lender call and email me, and it stood out to me so much. I'm like, wow, that is something that we need to do more often. And I will tell you that Dustin had been working with a buyer client for a long time in this season that we're in with multiple offers, and he had probably submitted, I don't know, maybe 6 different homes, multiple offer situations. And that last home was in multiple offers. I said, you need to have the lender call. And he did. And they won.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
you don't know what it is that makes the difference.
Yeah.
That's why there's so many do's, because each seller is different. Maybe it's the letter. Maybe it's the fact that the lender called. Maybe it's the appraisal gap. You don't know what it's going to be.
Yep.
But you want to put everything that you have out there so that you have the best shot at winning.
It definitely puts a bow on the package.
It does, because your lender's they've now got more skin in the game. You've called on their behalf. The lender's calling on their behalf.
And I promise they're not getting those phone calls from every offer.
They're not.
They're not.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Do remain professional in all interactions with a listing agent. I know we're all stressed with this crazy market, and we do lose our patience. And you may have a buyer that's breathing down your neck. They've lost out on all these offers. You feel like they're ready to fire you. But, we just have to at all times remain professional. You represent yourself and your brand, and you also represent Impact and its brand. And so we always want to make sure that we, treat people with the utmost respect.
Even when you don't get treated with respect, take a breath, try to give it back.
Yeah.
It's not always there. I know it's hard sometimes. But in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah. Listing agents are working in overdrive too. It's not just the buyer's agents.
As you are.
Yep. So, I mean, it's crazy. You pretty much have to take off your entire weekend as a listing agent. And even though you're out there showing houses on the weekend, we're fielding phone calls and, sifting through offers and being in touch with our seller constantly. And, just there's a lot that goes on. So on both sides. And so we just have to work together. And I would say 99% of the agents out there are really friendly and great to work with.
Yeah.
I think this market has jaded some of us.
Yes, it has.
So we just have to be just have that at the forefront when you're interacting, and stay positive. That's important it comes across when you're on the phone with another agent. Your positivity, it does, and it does with your client. And I always tell my buyer clients in this market, patience and persistence is going to pay off. And if they just keep that in mind, and just knowing that, if they fall in love with a house, this one doesn't work out, obviously the persistence is going to pay off. So just try to stay positive at all costs.
Yeah. It's true. And when you get the information back that you didn't win or whatever, if you find that you're kind of in a funk, go take a breath outside before you call your clients. Don't call your clients in that same mood. Step up, stand up, actually, walk around for a minute and call them while you're walking. Your how you feel on the other side of the phone, just because they can't see you doesn't mean they can't hear it in your voice. Mm-hmm. So try to take a breath. If you are just like, I don't know what else to do, call one of us and let's talk it through first before you go to your clients. Now that doesn't mean call us every time you lose an offer. Okay. That just means, when you get to the point where you are just frustrated and you feel like you don't know what else to do, get some perspective from another side. Maybe it's another agent. Maybe it's one of us. To grab that outside perspective, and take a breath before you go back to your buyer.
And, any feedback that you can give them is great. It helps them. That way it takes it off of you being the, bearer of bad news.
Right.
But, also try to talk about solutions. What's our next step? What other things can we do?
Correct.
Which brings us into the next point, and something that Sarah touched on earlier in regards to buyers that have an FHA, VA, or USD loans that are generally not at the highest chance of acceptance. When they keep getting rejection letters and kind of losing their hope in finding a home, there's a lot of stuff that we can do as buyers agents. So finding off-market properties, if there's a neighborhood or neighborhoods that they've been looking in or interested in, start knocking on doors, sending out flyers, sending out postcards to those neighborhoods to see if there is someone in there that may be willing to sell. Looking at for sale by owners and reaching out to sphere of influence. So, the off-market properties could not only benefit your buyer, but could benefit you from a listing standpoint. So it may not be that the buyer that you're working with ends up liking this particular home that you found a lead on that wants to sell. It could be that it's just another, opportunity that came along because you were doing your job.
Sure. Yeah, instead of just saying, hey, I'm sorry, there's nothing in the MLS that fits your criteria, go look at those expireds. Go see what you can find. Go knock on those doors. Worst case scenario, it doesn't fit for your buyer, but they still want to sell, and they'll let you be the listing agent. So doing lead gen that is directed towards finding something for your buyer is a win-win. You need to lead gen anyway, so why not lead gen towards what your buyer's looking for?
Yep. Okay, next slide, we're going to be talking about the do nots when it comes to being a buyer's agent representing your buyers. Some of the things that we do not recommend. First thing, and I know some of our seasoned long-term agents may not like to hear this, but it is a pet peeve for a lot of us, which is handwritten contracts. I don't recommend them. I just feel like it doesn't show the level of professionalism that you want to bring into a multiple offer situation. We have resources now. We have .loop that we offer to all of our agents, and we can, even pre-write a contract, without the number in there and a lot of pretty much all the property information you need for your buyer, and then have it ready to go. So you can kind of just send it off for signatures.
Sure. I mean, one of the things that I do especially in this market, but in any market, but I do find it helps me even more in this market, is that when I go to see a property with a buyer, I want to go ahead and email them a seller's disclosure ahead of time. So I want to, or covenants or whatever else might be in there that I think they might want to look at. So if they call you, I get it. Sometimes you can't do it. Sometimes it just is what it is. But when you have the opportunity, go ahead, and you're going to email it to them anyway. It's downloaded. Go ahead and import it. Go ahead. You don't have to set all your signatures or everything, but go ahead and have it in there. You've got a phone with internet. So if you've got your laptop with you, you could hook up to a hotspot and have them sign it. I get it. Sometimes there may be that one time where you're like, I have to write this in hand right now, or it's, I'm not going to get it in time. The rule of thumb for most everything is kind of what we're getting at here. We're not saying there's never an exception. We're just saying, try to keep it clean, try to make it look right. Plus, someone doesn't want to have to decipher your handwriting.
Yes.
So it's just much easier if you have it typed up in your computer.
Okay, do not ask for appliances that are not in MLS. it seems that this kind of, maybe it could potentially turn off the seller is what we're trying to get at. Maybe try to negotiate those in after inspections are done or something like that as a negotiating tool if they really want, or after everything's worked out, ask, hey, I noticed that the refrigerator wasn't in there. Is that even a possibility? And then you can start kind of get that ball rolling as far as negotiating that maybe with the repairs. Do not ask for a home warranty or seller to pay for CL 100. We may not be able to get around that seller paying CL 100 when it's a VA loan, but the home warranty, we're just basically saying keeping the contract as clean as possible from the stance of not asking for a whole lot of extras. Because when we write up a seller's net sheet, we put in there the home warranty, so that all of these things take away from what they're going to net at the end. So we're just trying to make it as appealing as possible.
If a home warranty is going to cost you the sale of a house, then you buy it. Okay? You just made $4,000. Can you afford $450 to keep that $4,000 in your pocket or not? I mean, you want to give them a closing gift. And if it's really, they're like, hey, look, I need a home warranty, then say, you know what? I'll give that to you as a closing gift from me. Yeah. And that's okay. You can write it off. You know, it's on your taxes, but they just put that kind of money in your pocket. $450 is not that much. So I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just saying, you know, obviously that's an option. If it's something that they don't let it cost you the entire contract. Right.
And again, it might be something that can be used as a negotiating tool. Sure. when
on repairs or something.
Yeah. So kind of keep that in the back of make a note of it that your buyer really wanted it, but maybe have it used in a different way after the contract is executed.
Sure.
Okay, do not ask the listing agent to order the home warranty if you're asking for one. It's funny that I put this in because it actually happened. And I didn't realize it till after the fact, but I'm like, really? Don't ask the other agent to do your work, okay? Let's just not do that. Anyway, trying to be very, professional and not ask for a lot. So keeping the contract as clean as possible. Do not ask for closing costs. Of course, if the buyer absolutely needs them to get it done and that's the only option that they have, then we can't get around that. But talk to their lender. A lot of these local lenders have more options than we even know about because we don't ask. And there may be a way for them to do a rate adjustment to cover closing costs. That basically means they're going to go up on the rate. It may throw things off for the buyer, so it might not be a possibility, but at least we have to ask if it is a possibility. So for example, let's just say the rate that they qualified for is 3.5, and if they go up to 4.5, they cover $2,500 in closing costs from the lender. However, that payment from 3.5 to 4.5 could have gone up just enough to put their debt to income ratio at a whack, and it won't work for that buyer, but some buyers it will. So again, asking the lender, there might be options there for them.
Right. That goes all the way back to that local lender that you have that opportunity to talk to. Because when you have a local lender that you have a relationship with, you don't have to have one lender. Have several lenders, that you have relationships with so that you can ask these kind of questions. Okay, hey, look, my buyer really needs these closing costs, and I'm not going to be able to get them in this contract. So what options do we have? Maybe it's, I don't have anything. Maybe it's, here's an option, but you don't know if you don't ask. Mm-hmm. So why not ask? And it also goes back to talking to your buyer from the very beginning about what it looks like contractually, to get a contract on a house in this market. Maybe it's best for them to know, oh, okay, so I need an additional $5,000. Well, I could do that in about 3 months if I work some overtime. So they know, hey, let me put this off to the side for a few minutes, and you're not running around writing offers that every moment they're asking for closing costs, and you're not going to win. Trying to get your lender to explain, you explain, and you guys working together as a team mm-hmm. makes a huge difference. So work within your vendor family to have them help you.
Okay, and we've already touched on this several times. I don't have to say it again, but the reason it's in there is for a reason, which is don't force your buyer to go out of their comfort zone. It's only going to come back and bite you and put your integrity in question, and that's what we don't want. We want the highest level of ethics and integrity with our agents. So do not lose your integrity or trust with your buyer to get the deal done. You know, a lot of times we're starting out in this industry and we don't have a lot of things in our pipeline, and I've seen it happen where your moral compass starts to get questioned, and you start to think about things you might not have done if money wasn't so tight or wasn't an issue. So the agents that have longevity in this business are the ones that, generally speaking, that have really good ethics and integrity. So always keep that in mind and don't lose sight.
Yep.
Don't give up or get disappointed. It is a numbers game. Chad, if you're out there listening, we know you've written 12 offers in the last month, and you know, it's hard, you know, and when you're working with buyers that don't have a lot of flexibility in their options, it's just, you're just going to have to keep going, and your attitude will affect your buyer's attitude and experience. And we do want them to have a good experience. So just stay positive. Anything else you want to add?
No, it's just, you know, it's hard to keep going.
Yeah.
Chin up.
It won't always be like this. All right, so we're going to transition now to the next slide, which is talking about being on the listing agent side of a multiple offer situation. So the first thing that I think should be done in that initial conversation, you know, somewhere in signing the listing agreement or getting the listing almost active, is talking to your seller about what they would prefer in a multiple offer situation. So it is helpful to do this before it goes live, because sometimes we just kind of get caught in the process and getting everything going and getting up and running as far as the listing, and we forget to talk to the seller about this, and all of a sudden we have all these showings and the buyer's agents are like, okay, what's the plan? And we're like, oh shoot, hold on,
We don't know. We forgot to talk to our seller beforehand.
So just talk to them about their strategy. So some of them want to look at offers as they come in, or some of them want to hold them until a certain date or time. You know, some of them want to read buyer letters, some of them don't. Maybe there's terms that are more desirable than others. For example, maybe they need a little extra time to move out because they've been living in the house for 20 years and they have so much stuff that there's no way that they can move out in 30 days.
Right.
So there's just so many things to kind of, you know, make sure you know, and those are the things that you can talk to the buyer's agents about. They want a 45-day close. Because
when they call in and say, what can I do?
Right.
Say, well, we really like a 45-day close. I'm not saying that's all of it, but I know that they want this.
Right.
So.
Yep. So just talk to them. And the other thing, you know, making sure their expectation about what's going to happen when their house goes live, meaning it's going to be crazy.
Right.
It's going to be nuts. If you price the house right and it's not inflated, they're going to have so many showings, they're going to just be pulling their hair out. So maybe it would be best, if they have the option, to go stay somewhere with a family friend, go out of town, whatever, for the weekend. It will just kind of save them that headache of fielding all of those requests for showings. So that's something to ask about.
Yeah. So for instance, the last house I put on the market, I told my guys, I said, okay, listen, you know, it's going to be crazy for the first couple days. Now we have a couple options. I can have you approve everyone, or I can just tell you that, hey, from this time to this time, so Friday and Saturday, and you know, all day Friday and Saturday, I'm going to make it a go and show. So basically, if anyone requests to see it, it's automatically approved, and you guys just don't come home, you know, or come home after 9 o'clock or whatever it is. But that way they don't have to approve 30 different showings or forget or get caught somewhere and people are blowing up your phone. Why aren't they approving this? I've got to get into this house. And then you're trying to reach out. So just, you know, make that an option if possible. So it makes everyone's life a little bit easier.
So what we like to do generally is list a house on Thursday or Friday, let it ride out through the weekend, you know, get as many showings as possible, and, you know, try to do a highest and best by either Saturday night or Sunday afternoon at some point. But you know, those times that those listings go live, I am basically mentally preparing myself that I'm going to be on the phone constantly. I am not going to really have an enjoyable, peaceful weekend. It's not going to be relaxing at all or very much. And I prepare my family for that as well. So just know, hey, mom or dad is going to be on the phone. or, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever, is in your life. You kind of have to set that expectation that, yes, you will be distracted. You will be answering phone calls if you price the house
correctly.
right.
Yes. And I will promise you, in this market, if you are overpriced, you will know it within 12 hours.
Yes.
If you don't have a bunch of showings, you're out. You need to check it.
Yep.
You need to take a second and check it.
So if it's crickets, something didn't go right, and I would
see, you might want to go back and check and see.
Just make sure you made it live first.
Yeah.
Make sure you did everything right.
And that it was $270,000, not $2.7 million or something like that. So just double check that.
Okay. We already talked about, making sure your family support system, knows that things are happening this weekend. We talked about listing on a Thursday. That does give the buyers in the market a good opportunity to see the home because of work schedules and whatnot. Please just answer your phone.
Yeah.
Check your emails. Make sure your voicemail's not filling up. Because it is so frustrating to be a buyer agent and trying to get
but the mailbox is full.
Oh gosh, I cringe every time. And I would say it may have happened once or twice. Okay, I don't know. There was one listing that went just bonkers. We had 31 offers, and I think my voicemail did get full at one point, but I tried to clear it as quickly as possible.
Right. So
just kind of be checking that, and then communicating with those buyers agents about the multiple offers and what the plan is and how to do that. So Showing Time does have a way to send out messages to anyone that's seen the home with instructions for final and best. So what I would do is I would put it on Showing Time, and I would also add it to the agent remarks on MLS. So once we are in multiple offers, I would add it to both. Not everyone's gonna see it, and that's that's their fault for not calling. I guess that's how I see it.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. All right, using the Showing Time. Okay, maintaining professionalism at all times. It gets crazy and you get overwhelmed, but remember, you're representing yourself as a brand and us as a brand, and be friendly to those buyers agents that are submitting 12 offers in 1 month and they're getting discouraged and they're, working their tail off. So, all right, do a seller's net sheet for each offer to be able to summarize the offers for your seller. So,
okay, now if you've got 30 offers, we do not expect you to write 30 different net sheets, okay? But what we want you to do is to go, they're paying you to help them. Ultimately, it's their call into what offer that they take. But if you have one offer that is, obviously under list price or at list price, and they're asking for closing costs. Or asking for all these things, and you're like, look, all these contracts are over list. Take the top 5. You need to give your client every one of them and let them know what's going on so that they see them. But when it comes down to it, take the top 5 and do a net sheet for them. Because these are the ones that you really want to look at. Obviously, here's all of the offers. These are the ones that are the best. From what I can see, I'm going to let you take a look at all of these, but here's the ones and if you want me to run a net sheet on one of these extra ones, I can. I'm always available for you. But this is what I am, saying I think that you should take a look at.
Yep. So basically, you covered those next two. So presenting all the offers. Here are all our offers. Here are the ones I kind of pulled out that are at the top that I feel is the strongest, most likely to close, the best financing, it's cash, whatever it may be. So you kind of sift through those and help your seller, because I can tell you it would get really overwhelming for someone to try to make a decision. But by doing that for them, it at least gives them those top 5, like Sarah says, or 3 or whatever, however many you have. And it's really up to them, the seller, to make the decision. You are in the position of an advisor, a professional that can point them to what you feel would be the best option, but ultimately it is up to them. And I always do put it back on them. And I've had sellers pick an offer that I actually did not advise them on. Correct. And the reasoning for them was that there was a personal connection. So, I can't, even though there was a personal connection, I didn't feel like it was the best offer. but they felt stronger about that than the other offer that they didn't have any connection to. So you just don't know, but and I tell them it's your decision. So if something doesn't work out, if they have a home sale contingency and the other offer doesn't, and they choose that one,
remember you chose that
remember one. So it's just make it very clear.
Right.
Because a lot of times at the end of a transaction, if things don't work out just the way everybody wants, who ends up getting
kicked?
Blamed.
That would be us.
Yeah,
yes.
we do. We get put in that category of getting blamed a lot for these things, and we shouldn't. So just be careful with dual agency and designated agency. So of course we all would love to have two sides of a transaction, but it doesn't.
I would not.
And yeah, Sarah disagrees. I actually have had dual agency transactions, and I don't love them. I really don't.
They make me sick to my stomach.
Yes, they do make you stress until the end, and you're always trying to be like, okay, am I in a neutral position? Am I representing one? Am I giving advice to one side or the other? Am I sharing too much information? You're always you have to be on your toes with dual agency. So if you haven't been in that situation before, just be careful. Reach out to your broker, Pat, to get any tips or whatnot. Designated agency doesn't concern me like dual does, just because it's a same agent or an agent within our brokerage that's on the other side.
But each parties are represented, whereas in dual, you're representing both sides or really no sides.
Right. And you just need to make sure you disclose. Make sure, but everybody knows that it's dual or designated. Do send out rejection letters. Okay, I do this most of the time. And the reason I say that is if I have 30 offers, I am not sending out rejection letters. I do like Sarah's recommendation about giving a breakdown of, what the summary was of, what the top offers were. I do like that. I think that might actually be better than a rejection letter, in my opinion.
And I think that's what was basically the rejection letter in a whole. So if you had 30 offers, you could go in and just, the rejection letter says this person, or you could just put for all agents who put an offer on this house. So you're writing one letter, and you can BCC to all of them so that they don't see what other agents were involved. You're going to blind carbon copy every agent, one foul swoop. Then it's a whole lot easier than filling out 30 different rejection forms. Just use the same one and just say, hey, look, if you're receiving this, it's because the seller's chose another offer.
And it's a general summary. We're not giving the details of the exacts. So that wouldn't be ethical, because essentially if that deal did not work out, another agent could use that to submit that next offer. So I wouldn't give the details.
But if it's cash, I think you can, that's what people usually say. They're like, well, cash is king.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to beat cash.
Yep.
So.
Okay, getting down towards the end here. Don't get overwhelmed with the chaos when it comes to multiple offers and being on the listing side. Take a break. Take the time to break down each offer and know it will be over soon. That's the great thing about this is, like, the other markets we've been in, it's, waiting and waiting and waiting, hoping you get that one showing. You really hope this is it.
Right.
No, you're not going to have that stress. It's a different type of stress.
It's stressful no matter what. Our job is stressful.
Yep.
It's just a different type of stress. It's kind of like, I don't know, if you have kids, it's like it's stressful when they're first born because they don't, in potty training, stress days, it just changes as you go through from age to age. Stress in real estate changes as we go through different parts of our market. Our basics that we want you to understand is that we want you to stay professional. We want you to have what you need to be able to compete in the market, whether you are a seasoned agent or whether you just came out of real estate school, because from our trainings and what we've provided for you how to do what you need to do to compete. And above and beyond making sure, that if someone says, man, that's an impact agent, they know what they're doing. They've been trained well. Or if they're not, they've got someone behind them to help them. They've got a good broker. They've got a good support system. That's what we're here to do, is to make sure that you guys have what you need to be able to compete. We want you to be able to go in anywhere and say, hey, I know what I'm doing.
Okay, the last slide is just a reminder that we're all in this crazy market together, and it won't always be like this. So stay professional, be kind, stay positive. And another little snippet from the broke agent: whenever I have a bad day in real estate, I take comfort in knowing there's another realtor out there having a far worse day than me.
Amen.
So, couple other things, and we've gone through some examples, but as far as case study examples, I've touched on some of them. I think if you use these do's and don'ts, it will come out in your client's favor. And I think, there's lots of examples to share, but, just do what's best for your client, be ethical, and, allow them to make the best educated decision.
Yeah. I've had the appraisal overage make it what my listing agent or what my sellers took one time. Sometime it was the letter, one time it's because they put so much money down on the house that, appraisal wasn't as big of an issue. There's always going to be something different. Every real estate, you can have almost the exact same house with almost the exact same buyer, and I can promise you there will be nothing that's the same. They're all
just
different.
Like a home inspection.
Yes, just like a home inspection. You could have the same home inspected by 3 different inspectors, and they would find all different stuff. It's crazy. But it is just never the same. So knowing that, that's why we try to give you as much arsenal and as much, as many weapons as we can to go against this, to go into this, so that when you do put it all together, that hopefully one of these things will help put your client over.
Yep. Great. If you have any questions, reach out to us.
Yep. And we will we won't be having anything because that's not correct English, but we will send out some of when we email this out, we'll send out some of the sheets that need to go with it, so you guys can have it in your hands, maybe a net sheet breakdown, maybe some examples of some different things, the addendums for the escalation wording, things like that. So we'll try to send a couple attachments with this so that you guys can have those and put them in another place where you can find them later. I don't know where that'll be right now, but we'll let you know. Thanks so much, and y'all have a great day.
Bye.